Hi everyone, my name is Leah Yunan. My project is called Watermelon Art, Palestinian Art for Liberation. I chose this title because the watermelon has become a powerful symbol of Palestinian resistance and liberation, and I wanted to explore how symbols, when used intentionally in a classroom, can promote culturally responsive learning and critical thinking. In 1967, only 19 years after Israel declared independence on Palestinian land, Palestinians were no longer allowed to fly their own flag. And the watermelon's colors mirror that of the Palestinian flag: red, white, black, and green. The watermelon is by no means the only symbol Palestinian artists use, but it is a very common and increasingly popular symbol, especially in online protests in the wake of the ongoing genocide in Gaza at the hands of the Israeli occupation. Despite censorship of their flag by Israeli forces, Palestinians have found that the watermelon remains a substitute symbol, a way to signal support and express their national identity. So it's not just a fruit. A watermelon is a symbol of resistance against colonial forces. It's a reclamation of identity that is at risk of erasure. It means survival against occupation and expresses a sense of belonging of the native people to their land. Culturally responsive pedagogy enhances student engagement through cultural relevance. And this conversation around Palestinian resistance is certainly very relevant to students these days. The conversation about the occupation of Palestine is prevalent online and in a world of protests, university encampments, and boycotts. Both young and older students are increasingly aware of this issue and need a space to feel able to explore their questions and thoughts about this very topic. Culturally responsive pedagogy is about helping students feel seen and heard, and also about challenging the gaps in traditional curriculum. By using symbols like the watermelon in art education, we invite students to think about voice, visibility, and how people reclaim their identities even under occupation. Culturally responsive pedagogy is also about helping students better understand what they see in the world around them and develop a greater sense of empathy for others, especially peers in their age group. And unfortunately, those are too frequently the victims in this particular occupation. Importantly, culturally responsive pedagogy provides opportunity for students to express their thoughts and feelings about the occupation and about what they see online. Palestinian liberation is rooted in decades of displacement, of violence, and in censorship. In many classrooms, Palestinian stories are either misrepresented or ignored altogether, which makes visual art even more important. Artists become historians and truth tellers. This background is essential for students to understand the context behind the symbols that we're about to explore. Were at the forefront of resistance when the flag was first prohibited by Israeli occupation forces. They began to use the colors of the flag in various symbolic and pattern based art to continuously reclaim elements of their national identity. Symbols like the olive tree firmly rooted, the rivers and the seas, the watermelon, the dove of peace, a key, and crops all become representative of the Palestinian identity and resistance, both in Palestine and in the diaspora around the world. Contemporary artists, we're going to explore 5 of those together. They have been using these symbols, symbols that we'll eventually get into, in their art for many years now. The first is Sleiman Mansour, who is one of the most important figures in modern Palestinian art. He was born in the West Bank in 1947. And he spent his life creating paintings that reflect the struggle, resilience, and everyday lives of Palestinians, especially during times of occupation and resistance. One of his most famous works is called Jamal al-Mahamal from 1973, called Camel of Hardships, or the Carrier of Hardships, where a Palestinian man carries Jerusalem on his back like a burden. It's a powerful metaphor for how Palestinians are expected to carry the weight of exile, colonialism, and displacement, and yet still expected to survive with dignity. His palette is mostly earth tones, which is interesting because the land itself becomes a character in so much of his work. He often paints women, olive trees, and traditional embroidery, which all carry symbolic meaning as well. What I love most is that during the first Intifada, which means uprising against occupation, Mansour and other artists refused to use Israeli made art supplies. They literally made their own paints from natural materials. And that action shows how resistance in art just isn't just about the final product of the visual art itself, but also in the materials used and in the artistic process. As a classroom resource, Mansour's work helps students see how rich symbolism brings meaning to art. He offers a way to teach about identity, endurance, and national belonging without relying only on text based history. Our second Palestinian artist is named Khalid Hourani, and he is a contemporary Palestinian artist and curator known for using conceptual art to address political repression and cultural identity. He was born in Hebron in the West Bank and is a co founder of the International Academy of Art in Ramallah, also in the West Bank. In his 2024 piece called This Is Not a Watermelon, Hourani pushes us to think about how symbols carry layered meaning, especially under occupation. It teaches us to question who gets to define what an image means and how power often controls narratives and perceptions. For high school classrooms in particular, this artwork opens powerful conversations up about symbolism, metaphor, and visual protests. It is also a really great experience, an entry point into media literacy, which teaches students to analyze the meaning and how meaning is created, how it's distorted, how it can be erased or censored. Our third artist is named Malek Matar. She is born and raised in Gaza. Um, and as a young Palestinian, especially during Israeli bombardment of Gaza in 2014, she used artwork as a form of therapy during airstrikes. Her work is often raw and colorful and expresses deep emotions. Her piece here, Taking My Homeland With Me from 2017, was completed prior to her move to Istanbul in Turkey to study art. Her desire to depict her homeland in the center of her chest helps us to better empathize with the challenges of identity in the diaspora. Matar is a great artist to bring into a high school classroom because she's relatable to teenagers and shows that art can be a coping mechanism. Our fourth artist is named Halima Aziz. She is a young German Palestinian illustrator who uses digital art to represent the beauty and resilience of Palestinian identity, especially through the lens of children. She responded to digital censorship with symbolic representations of Palestinian resistance. A recurring theme in her work is the presence of children holding watermelons, keys, or doves, which are familiar symbols that carry deep political meaning. What makes Aziz's work useful in a classroom is that it's immediately relatable. Students can identify the use of simple symbols, and they can also analyze deeper meanings. So it makes it very compatible to age-based art study. Her work encourages students to ask questions. How can ordinary things like fruit, fabric, or animals tell stories of history and struggle? Her style supports culturally responsive pedagogy and inquiry based learning by helping students ask questions and then analyze art as both aesthetic and narrative. And our final artist is Bisan Arafat, who is a Palestinian American digital artist who uses symbols, often food, as a powerful visual metaphor for Palestinian identity and survival. Her piece here, called Fruits of Resistance from 2024, is exactly what the title suggests. It's a celebration how everyday objects, everyday fruits, can become symbols of resistance and national identity. Like Halima Aziz before, Arafat's art invites students to rethink the bonds between everyday objects, including cultural foods, and identity. Cultural representations. we're going to go over 5 examples of visual culture which communicate Palestinian identity and resistance through symbolic imagery. These resources, shows, books, and emojis can be used to build awareness, empathy, critical media literacy, and cross-disciplinary learning in the classroom. The first is emojis. As we've discussed, resistance to censorship, symbols pack a punch in the fight of social justice. So emojis take digital resistance, especially on social media platforms, um, up a notch. In the wake of shadow banning on social media platforms of outspoken profiles supporting Palestinian resistance, these symbols often provide a lot of support and bring light in the face of erasure. And as I mentioned, shadow banning. Those shadow banning experiences often fuel one side of the political conversation, and it continues to erase the Palestinian cause, which is rooted in national identity. So, such a small but powerful symbol is readily accessible and familiar to students who are either in kindergarten or to grade 12, depending upon how much time they spend online. The second representation is the Netflix series Mo. Mo is a semi autobiographical story about a Palestinian refugee navigating life in Houston, Texas. As a stateless refugee, complications with immigration arise as national identity in the diaspora is explored. Symbolism is heavy, especially in season 2, which was highly praised as being a very authentic representation of longing and belonging, of resilience and self determination. In particular, the symbol of a key is repeatedly used through dream sequences, especially in connection with memories and dreams of his grandparents. As we've discussed, keys often represent the promise of Palestinians to return to their land, which was stolen, and it's a symbol of true ownership of the land. Our third representation is the keffiyeh, which is more than just a scarf. It has become a symbol of Palestinian resistance and of rural identity. Traditionally, a keffiyeh was used to shield farmers from the sun and sand. The black and white pattern has become associated with nationalism, especially during the 1936 Arab Revolt in the wake of Israelis beginning to claim sovereignty over Palestinian land. And in the decades that followed, it became even more familiar. It has been worn by resistance fighters and activists alike. It has come to symbolize solidarity with Palestinian struggle. And it is not just a symbol for Palestine anymore, but it is also for all anti-colonial struggles around the world. You'll often see it worn during protests and marches and at solidarity events, but it is also commercialized and it has been appropriated in fashion, especially without credit or context. So this piece of cultural representation in particular invites students to discuss how fabric and clothing often carry history, what it means to wear culture with or without proper understanding, and how visual symbols evolve and who gets to claim them. And finally, this book is by Gobart Bashi, and it uses the ABC format to familiarize readers with Palestinian heritage and values. It offers a simple but powerful way to include Palestinian voices in early literacy, while also sparking dialogue around representation and censorship. The I is for Intifada page has also sprung controversy, but provides ample room for discussion with students about ownership and the power of words. Who gets to define those words, just as we've already discussed who gets to define what a symbol means. And last but absolutely not least, we have Handala. who has been one of the most recognized contemporary Palestinian symbols around the world. He was created by artist Naji al-Ali after the 1967 war. Handala represents the artist himself at the age that he was when he had to flee to Kuwait from Palestine in 1948. He never shows his face. He's always barefoot and ragged, but watching with his back turned. He's a witness. He symbolizes refusal to accept injustice or occupation. Over the years, Handala has become a global symbol of resistance. He has been found in murals, tattoos, and protest art globally. Handala is a powerful way to teach students about visual symbolism and to explore themes of grief, memories that unite, and resilience in the face of occupation. Naji al-Ali, though he was assassinated in London in 1987, once said that Handala will remain a 10-year-old until he is able to return home to Palestine. Handala is a legacy of al-Ali's uncompromising resistance. There are so many creative ways to bring this into a classroom. Students can design their own symbolic artwork, like what kind of fruit or object would represent their identity. Teachers can also pair this with history lessons or literature on diaspora, censorship, or global justice. It can give students a way to make connections between personal identity and world events, especially due to the ongoing nature and social media popularity of this particular cause. This project reminded me of how symbols matter and how art can hold stories that are often erased, censored, or politicized. The watermelon is a symbol of resistance, but also of joy and resilience. Many other symbols exist within Palestinian resistance that we've explored. Taking the time to understand those symbols helps us view everyday objects as bearing deeper meaning. Thank you so much. Have a great day.